Chapter 3. The Snow. The first snow that whitens the Sierra usually falls around the end of October, or early in November, to a depth of a few inches. After months of the most charming Indian summer weather imaginable, but in a few days, this light covering mostly melts from the slopes exposed to the sun and causes but little apprehension on the part of the mountaineers, who may be lingering among the high peaks at this time. The first general winter storm that yields snow that is to form a lasting portion of the season's supply seldom breaks on the mountains before the end of November. Then, warmed by the sun, cautious mountaineers, together with the wild sheep, deer, and most of the birds and bears, make haste to the lowlands or foothills, and burrowing marmots, mountain beavers, wood rats, and such people go into the winter quarters. Some of them not again to see the light of the day until the general awakening and resurrection of the sun in June or July. The first heavy fall is usually from about 2 to 4 feet in depth. Then, with intervals of splendid sunshine, storm succeeds storm, heaping snow on snow until 30 to 50 feet has fallen. But on account of its setting and compacting, and the almost constant haste from melting and evaporation, the average depth usually found at any time seldom exceeds 10 feet in the forest region, or 15 feet along the slopes of the summit peaks. Even during the coldest weather, evaporation never wholly ceases, and the sunshine that abounds from between the storms is sufficiently powerful to melt the surface more or less through all the winter months. Waste from melting also goes on to some extent on the bottom from their heat stored up in the rocks and given off slowly to the snow in contrast with them, as is shown by the rising of the streams on all the higher regions after the first snowfall, and their steady sustained flow all winter. The greater portion of the snow deposited around the lofty summits of the range falls in small crisp flakes and broken crystals, or when accompanied by strong winds and low temperature, the crystals, instead of being locked together in their fall to form tough flakes, are beaten and broken into meal and fine dust. But down in the forest region, the greater portion comes gently to the ground, light and feathery. Some of the flakes in mild weather being nearly an inch in diameter, and is evenly distributed, and kept from drifting to any great extent by the shelter afforded by large trees. Every tree during the progress of gentle storms is loaded with fairy bloom at the coldest and darkest time of the year, bending the branches and hushing every single needle. But as soon as the storm is over and the sun shines, the snow at once begins to shift and settle and fall from the branches in miniature avalanches. And from the white forest soon become green again. The snow on the ground also settles and thaws every bright day and freezes at night until it becomes coarsely granulated and loses every trace of its rayed crystalline structure. And then a man may firmly walk over its frozen surface as if on ice. The forest region up to an elevation of 7,000 feet is usually in great part free from snow in June. But at this time the higher regions are still heavy laden and are not touched by spring weather to any considerable extent before the middle of the end of June. One of the most striking effects of the snow on mountains is the burial of the rivers and small lakes. As the snow falls in the river, a moment white, then lost forever. Saying Burns in illustrating the fleeting character of human pleasure, The first snowflakes that fall into the Sierra rivers vanish thus suddenly, but in great storms, when the temperature is low, the abundance of the snow at length chills the water nearly to the freezing point, and then, of course, it ceases to melt and consume the snow so suddenly. The failing flakes in crystal form cloud-like masses of blue sludge, which are swept forward with the current and carried down to warmer climates many miles distant. While some are lodged against logs and rocks and projecting points of the banks and last for days, piled high above the level of the water and show white again instead of being at once lost forever. While the rivers themselves are at a length lost for months during the snowy period, the snow is first built out from the banks in bossy, overcurling drifts, compacting and cementing until the streams are spanned. They then flow in the dark beneath a continuous covering across the snowy zone, which is about 30 miles wide. All the Sierra rivers and their tributaries in these high regions are thus lost every winter, as if another glacial period had come on. Not a drop of running water is to be seen excepting at night. Repeated thawing and freezing and new layers of snow render the bridging masses dense and firm, so that one may safely walk across the stream, or even lead a horse across them without danger of falling through. In June, the thinnest parts of the winter ceiling and those most exposed to sunshine began to give way, forming dark, rugged lasting of the winter bridges, thawing from below as well as from above, because warm currents of air passing through the tunnels and are strikingly arched and sculpted, and by the occasional freezing of and the oozing and dripping of water of the ceiling, they become brightly and picturesquely icy. In the sum of the reaches, where there is a free margin, we may walk through them, small skylights appearing here and there. These tunnels are not very dark. The roaring river fills all the arching way with impressively loud reverberating music, which is sweetened at times by the ouzel, a bird that is not afraid to go wherever a stream may go, and to sing wherever a stream sings. All the small alpine pools and lakelets are in like manner obliterated from the winter landscape, either by being first frozen and then covered by snow, or by being filled in by avalanches. The first avalanche of the season shot into a lake basin may perhaps find the surface frozen. Then there is a grand crashing of breaking ice and dashing of waves, mingled with the low booming of the avalanche. Detached masses of the invading snow mixed with fragments of ice drift about in sludgy, island-like heaps, while the main body of it forms a talus, with its base wholly or in part resting on the bottom of the basin, as controlled by its depth and size of the avalanche. The next avalanche, of course, encroaches still further, and so on with each in frozen succession, until the entire basin may be filled with it, and its water sponged up or displaced. This huge mass of sludge, more or less mixed with sand, stones, and perhaps timber, is frozen to a considerable depth. As much sun heat is required to thaw it. Some of these unfortunate lakelets are not clear of ice and snow until near the end of summer. Others are never quite free, opening only on the side opposite to the entrance of the avalanche. Some show only a narrow crescent of water lying between the shore and the sheer bluffs of icy, compacted snow masses, of which breaking off float in front like icebergs in a miniature Arctic Ocean. while the avalanches heap, leaning back against the mountains, look like small glaciers. The frontal cliffs are in some instances quite picturesque, and with the berg-dotted waters in front of them, lighted with sunshine, are exceedingly beautiful. It often happens that while one side of the lake basin is hopelessly snow-buried and frozen, the other, enjoying sunshine, is adorned with beautiful flower gardens. Some of the smaller lakes are extinguished in an instant by a heavy avalanche, either by rocks or snow. The rolling, sliding, ponderous masses entering on one side sweeps across the bottom and up the opposite side, displacing the water and even scraping the basin clean and showing the accumulated rocks and sediments up the further bank and taking full possession. The dislodged water is in part absorbed, and most of it is sent around the front of the avalanche and down the channel of the outlet, roaring and hurrying as if frightened and glad to escape.